Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Going over my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. It starts at 1 o'clock, so make sure you're ready for that. It's Labor Day, so they're starting their games at 1 o'clock today for the main slate. So make sure you're ready for that. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, if you could please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you'd like access to my entire MLB sheet and my Slack chat, links in the description below for my Patreon. And if you guys saw my video last night at like 3 in the morning, I apologize. I deleted it because I made a big boo-boo on there. So when it was like 3 in the morning, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this video in the morning because it's late and less people will see it. So I decided to try to get one out last night, and I made a mistake. I was making sure who the Giants pitcher was, and I knew Jeff Samardzija pitched yesterday, and I read a tweet saying Samardzija's going to be on the mound Sunday, and I didn't have class tomorrow or today. And I was like, oh, so he's pitching tomorrow, because I thought tomorrow was Sunday for a little bit. But obviously that's not the case. I just want to make a new video. I apologize. I hate making mistakes like that. So, fresh sheet today. So let's get into it now. I'm more awake and ready to go. So, at pitcher, we have Jake Odorizzi at 10,500 versus Detroit. Ryan Yarbrough at 9,400 versus Baltimore. And Kyle Hendricks at 8,900 versus Seattle. And then Drew Smyly is reserved for tournaments only. And if you're going to play him, just close your eyes and say a prayer, because that's what you're going to need. So anyway, let's get into today's slate. Let's talk about pitchers. So up top, let me sort this by salary, because I don't know why it's sorted that way. So up top is Jake Odorizzi, who draws a soft matchup versus Detroit. Now, he has a good strikeout percentage this season. He has a pretty respectable ERA at 3.55, but we like to use XFIP as the indicator. So he has a 4.65 XFIP, 25.5% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate is not too shabby either. Now, I will say he does not get a lot of ground balls, does allow a high fly ball rate at 45% and a hard contact rate at 42%. I don't like that at all. But this matchup versus Detroit is soft. Michael Pineda just had 9 strikeouts versus them. He should be able to get the dub here. So if you hear the jingling, it's my dog. He must want to come for the video. Anyway, so the Detroit splits versus righties. They own a 26.5% strikeout rate, 149 team ISO, 283 team MOBA, 73 WRC plus. This is a really good spot for him. I will say, though, he is very, very expensive, and I actually prefer to spend down with Ryan Yarbrough as my SP1 because I want to get some of these Twins bats in, and you guys know how much I love the Twins, and they have a great matchup today versus Jordan Zimmermann. So I don't think we're going to be able to afford Odorizzi, even though I think he's probably the highest projected pitcher on this slate. So I do, he is my highest projected pitcher, but Ryan Yarbrough is right behind him, and he's 1,100 cheaper. So I'd rather go with him. So let's talk about Yarbrough now. So he's been decent recently. I know he was hot for a stretch of few games, but he cooled off a little bit, but still. He may be a little overpriced here, but it's just what we have to work with on this slate. Now, I do like that he's pitching at home instead of Camden Yards. And the Orioles really struggle with lefties. If you look at their splits versus lefties, you're seeing a lot of shades of green, a lot of dark shades of green here, which is what we like to see. 26.1% strikeout rate, 154 team ISO, 301 team WOBA, 85 WRC plus. They suck versus lefties. Yarbrough is not a terrible pitcher if you look at his splits this season. Very respectable 401 XFIP, 22% strikeout rate, only a 3% walk rate, which is what I like. I hate when my pitchers just go 30 pitches an inning, they allow 2 walks, and then you're sweating to death on MLB at bat, hoping you don't see that in-play runs when there's multiple people on base. So I do like that, and I think he is my favorite SP1 of the entire slate. Now, Kyle Hendricks, he is a decent SP2 option. I hate paying this much for pitchers, but I don't want to play Drew Smyly in cash because I feel like he's just going to screw me, and there's a lot of things that could go wrong for him. So let's talk about Kyle Hendricks. I think he's a somewhat safe play. He's a favorite going into this game. He's got okay numbers this season, 4.4 XFIP, 347 ERA, 20% strikeout rate, 4% walk rate. He's got good control, 33% hard contact rate that he allows, which is pretty darn good. So I do like him as my SP2. The Mariners tend to strike out some. I mean, they have some power in their lineup, which is a little concerning. But again, he doesn't allow a ton of power. And the Mariners are striking out at a 25.7% clip to righties, which I do like. So if we can get maybe 1 or 2 run ball, 6 strikeouts, I would be just fine with that as my SP2. Because chances are Smyly he's either going to get lucky and have a pretty nice game, or he's going to give up 5 runs and maybe have 6 strikeouts. So I feel a lot safer with Hendricks in cash games. But if you want to do a full stack in GPPs, and I mean like a full stack, you're probably going to have to play Drew Smiley at 4,600. And man, I don't like that because you got some really good righties in that lineup, and it's a great park for hitting. I mean, you got the Punisher, you got Eugenio Suarez, Iglesias is in there. So it's going to be tough. Now, there is a way at 4,600 he can do it to make value. If he gets you 5 points, you won't feel that bad about 4,600, because if you can full stack the Twins with Smiley and Cruz double dongs, Kepler hits a dong, Rosario gets 2 doubles and some RBIs, Cron goes deep, you're going to feel pretty good with 5 points, because a lot of people are not going to be able to full stack the Twins if they're going Kyle Hendricks and Ryan Yarbrough. So that's the only reason I'm going to play Drew Smiley, is an absolute full stacks. And again, I still don't even feel that good about it. In cash games, I think we're going to want to go Yarbrough and Kyle Hendricks, and there's enough value to be able to get in some good bats like Kepler and who else do I have on there? Like Polanco or something. So do like those 3 or 4 pitchers for today. And then let's talk about the bats. We have Gary Sanchez at 4,400. I don't get the price here. He's facing a lefty. I know Mike Minor's not a terrible pitcher, but he definitely cooled off from the beginning of the season where he was on fire. Gary Sanchez is great. He's one of the best home run hitters in the league, the best home run hitting catcher. And at 4,400, I think that's kind of a steal of a price for him. If you can fit him in, I would love that. But if you can't, Jason Castro is a fine option to add onto your twin stacks, or really if you just want to throw him on. 3,500 versus Jordan Zimmermann. Jordan Zimmermann has a very low strikeout percentage, and he's worse versus lefties. That doesn't mean he's good versus righties either, but worse versus lefties, allowing more power to them. And Castro is I was going to say a key part of that twin stack, but that is not true. He's just an add-on to your twin stack. And if nothing else, and there's a punt 2K catcher that shows up, feel free to plug him in, because that's what I love to do every night. And then at first base, we have Ji-Man Choi at 4,100 versus Asher Wojciechowski. Now, he has an extremely high fly ball rate when it comes to lefties and righties. And let me just pull up his splits, actually, so I can show you guys. So if you're looking at his overall splits, he only has a 27% ground ball rate. Now, that is much lower than most of these guys besides Drew Smiley, go figures. And actually, Jake Odorizzi is at 34%, but he's at 27%. 56% fly ball rate, and I don't like that at all. There's probably going to be some home runs here, especially by the lefties. He's allowing a 357 ISO to lefties, 384 WOBA, and these numbers would be really dark shades of green if Justice Sheffield in a limited sample size wasn't allowing that high of an ISO to lefties, which is a smaller sample size. But still, he's not very good versus lefties. Tampa Bay has quite a few good ones. Now, this is not a great park for hitting at all, but I think they can make up for that. The Orioles bullpen's pretty bad too. So I definitely like Ji-Man Choi at 4,100. He should be batting around cleanup-ish. And yeah, he's just way too cheap. He's a core play for me, and I'd love to fit him in my lineups. And then a little bit cheaper, Brandon Belt versus Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright is not a terrible pitcher, but he can be attacked with lefties. And Brandon Belt is a very cheap lefty who should be hitting first or second. Wainwright does give up some hard contact to lefties, so he makes some sense there. Then CJ Cron, I prefer him versus lefties, but he's been hitting really well recently, and Jordan Zimmermann is not that good versus righties either. And he's probably going to see a lefty at some point in the Detroit bullpen, so I don't mind him in full stacks. Then at second base, we have Luis Arraez at 4K versus Jordan Zimmermann. He's a lefty facing him. Now he's probably not going to be hitting cleanup anymore, which not probably he's not. But he should be batting 5th, 6th, and I don't mind that. He's really cheap too at 4K versus Jordan Zimmermann. Eric Sogard should be leading off versus Asher Wojciechowski, and I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. So, because I try to say the names right, but it's a tough name to pronounce, I will say. I've never actually heard the announcer say his name, so maybe I should watch today just to make sure I get that down. Eric Sogard at 4,300, though, leading off lefty versus him. He makes sense to me. Brad Miller at 3,500 versus Anthony DeSclafani. Now, I know you're saying, didn't Anthony DeSclafani go off last game? He did, but that was versus the Marlins, and he struggles with lefties. And the Phillies, I almost said the Brewers, the Phillies have quite a few decent lefties on here with some power, and that includes Brad Miller. He should be batting around 5th. It's a great ballpark for hitting, especially lefty power. DeSclafani will struggle with lefties. He's got some major splits versus them. So Brad Miller makes some sense there, and he's really cheap too. At third base, we have Chris Bryant at 4,200, who's very, very cheap facing a lefty. Now, like I said, Sheffield in a limited sample size is allowing a lot of hard contact and power to both sides of the plate. So Chris Bryant, 4,200. He's pretty good versus lefties. He makes some sense to me. And he's eligible in the outfield too, which is going to boost his ownership. And Brad Miller we just talked about, and Rays we just talked about, so that makes everything simpler. Then at shortstop, we have Jorge Polanco at 4,800 versus Jordan Zimmermann. I love Polanco today. If you can fit him in, I'd really recommend that. Zimmermann really struggles with lefties. Polanco is a much better hitter from the left side of the plate when he is facing righties, so Polanco makes a lot of sense to me. Javi Baez, 4,200, just cheaper righty power versus Sheffield, and Baez is very cheap, and we know his upside. Brandon Crawford, 3,400. If you have to go this low, I'd prefer not to, but I do prefer the lefties versus Adam Wainwright, and I don't mind Crawford. And in the high-end outfield, you guys know he had to be on here. He's my favorite player in DFS. One of them. Lindor's up there too, and Rosario. But Max Kepler, 5,300 versus Jordan Zimmermann. Zimmermann sucks versus lefties. Max Kepler has been great this season. If you're new to the channel, I love Max Kepler. I play him probably more than anybody. I was playing him in the beginning of the season. I just love the guy. He tends to always produce. He's hitting leadoff for one of the best offensive teams in the league. Load up your Max Keplers. I will not make a lineup without him today. Sorry. And then Bryce Harper, 5,400, just lefty power versus Anthony Descalfani. I said Descalfani's got some big splits versus lefties. Pretty tough on righties, but lefties will get to him. Nelson Cruz at 5,700 versus Detroit. Now, if you're full stacking the Twins, do not leave him off. I know I said Zimmerman's better versus righties and Cruz is better versus lefties. That does not mean either of the two are. That doesn't mean Cruz is bad versus righties at all, or Zimmerman's good versus righties. Cruz still has a majorly high ISO versus righties. He can hit them well. He just absolutely murders lefties though. But still, he should see a lefty in the bullpen anyway. And Jordan Zimmermann does not scare me whatsoever. So I love Nelson Cruz tomorrow if you can afford him. He's honestly has the most upside on the team, right up there with Kepler, but it would never surprise me if Cruz just triple dongs. And then in the mid-range outfield, we have Eddie Rosario at 4,600. I love the price on him. He's going to be batting cleanup versus Jordan Zimmermann as a lefty. Love Eddie Rosario today. Would definitely like to get him in your lineups. I don't think I have him as a core play. No, I do. Okay, so there he is. He's a core play. So definitely love Eddie Rosario. And then Austin Meadows at 4,700 versus Asher Wojciechowski. He's a lefty, and like I said, he is struggling with lefties. Allows a ton of fly balls. I know it's not a good park for hitting, but they can do it versus Asher in that bad bullpen. And then Corey Dickerson at 4,900. Now I guess this really isn't a mid-range guy, but oh well, I like him. So just another lefty versus Anthony Descalfani, and you guys know why I like the lefties versus Anthony Descalfani. And then in the value outfield, we have Kevin Kiermaier, 4K. He's probably going to be batting around 6, but he's another lefty. He's another lefty versus Asher. And then Chris Bryant, we already talked about. Jake Cave is just a cheap lefty versus Jordan Zimmermann if he's in the lineup, and he's been hitting well recently. And Nick Castellanos, who's been on fire since he's joined the Cubs, and he's facing a lefty. And what does Castellanos do really, really well? He crushes lefties. So I do like him. I was going to say if you can afford him, but you can definitely afford him. So 4,300. And then for the core plays and top stacks for me are Ji-Man Choi at 4,100, Max Kepler at 5,300, and Eddie Rosario at 4,600. And then the top stacks for me are the Twins, the Rays, the Phillies lefties, and the Cubs, preferably the righties, but if you want to do everything, go for it. And then I don't do my FanDuel core until usually later in the day, but this video is in the morning. So for playing FanDuel, I like Yarbrough, Kepler. Kepler's only like 3,600, I think. That's just way too cheap. And then Brad Miller's I'm not a FanDuel player, but I just take the prices and look at the value. I think he's 2,200. Might be wrong there, but I know he was an excellent value when I was looking at it, so I put him as a core play. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the video. I apologize for being stupid last night and thinking Jeff Samardzija was pitching today. I felt really dumb, so I deleted the video. Hopefully you guys were thinking the same thing. But I wish you guys the best of luck. Enjoy your day off if you got work off for Labor Day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I might do an NFL video today, probably. I'll be bored today, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So anyway, wish you guys the best of luck. See ya.